Today, we're going to be taking a look at 4 make-or-break players for the Green Bay Packers entering the 2024 season. A make-or-break player is basically a player entering either the last year of their rookie contract or a player that is fighting for their potential job. And likely this player just has one more season to prove their worth for the Green Bay Packers. Every year, it seems like there is a handful of players that when we sit down and look at the roster, we think, this is their last year to really show something, or else it's probably their last year in the green and gold. And this year is no different with the Green Bay Packers. So in today's video, we have 4 players to go over that, in my opinion, are on a make or break season. Meaning if they don't perform well enough, it's likely their last season for the Packers. If you do happen to be a new viewer to this channel and want more Packers news analysis and updates throughout the entire offseason, training camp is just around the corner, and I post a ton of content during training camp that you definitely will not want to miss. And currently, over 50% of my viewers are not subscribed, and you might not even know it that you're not subscribed. So I'd really appreciate it if you went down, simply clicked the subscribe button. It's free to do, and you won't regret it. All right, so without further ado, let's dive right into the video. And the first player on this list is, my opinion, the biggest make or break player for the Green Bay Packers in 2024, and probably a lot of you have already guessed who this is, and it is Eric Stokes, a former first-round draft pick out of Georgia from the 2021 NFL Draft. Eric Stokes has had an injury-plagued career, to say the least, back-to-back season-ending injuries in 2022 and 2023, and simply hasn't been able to stay on the field. A plethora of lower leg injuries, but this offseason, he went and saw a specialist in Madison with Christian Watson to try to get to the root cause of all of his lower leg injuries. Now, we want both of these players, obviously, to be healthy. If Eric Stokes can return to health and return to form, he was a very promising cornerback his rookie season and also to begin 2022. He showcased his raw athleticism and, of course, speed. That's one of his biggest question marks heading into the season. Can he return to his former self, his former speed, which was, his biggest part of his game? And Eric Stokes has gone on record this offseason saying he feels faster than he ever was. And actually, last season, in the little action he saw, he was only active for 2 games. He was actually recorded as the fastest player for the Green Bay Packers at 21.7 miles per hour. So it seemed even last year he still had the speed. So now this year, entering an offseason, what seems like for the first time, he's actually healthy and can go through an entire offseason without being injured, while also being on the last year of his rookie deal. Being a first-round pick, the Packers had to either accept or decline his 5th-year rookie option. They, of course, declined it because it was just a lot of money and it made no sense for Eric Stokes. So now this is the last year of his rookie deal. And that's why, in my opinion, with the injuries and how he once played as a rookie and a second-year player, and it being the last year of his rookie deal, a former first-round draft pick, he is the #1 make-or-break player on the Green Bay Packers for 2024. Then when you take a look at the roster, the cornerback room, although the Packers didn't spend any high draft capital on a cornerback, if you don't consider Javon Bullard a corner, even if you did, he's more of a nickel option where Eric Stokes is an outside cornerback. They didn't spend any high draft capital on corner, or at least outside corner. They drafted Kalen King in the 7th round, but I still think he even transitions into a nickel type of cornerback at the NFL level. So we all thought, okay, the Packers were definitely going to draft a cornerback. We all had eyes on Terry Arnold, Cooley McKinstry, Cooper DeJean, and none of which were drafted by the Green Bay Packers, seemingly showing that they have a lot of trust still in Eric Stokes returning to form. But there's also Carrington Valentine right on the doorstep, who stepped into stardom last season as one of these starting cornerbacks as a 7th-round pick out of Kentucky. I mean, he came right onto the scene in training camp and started making plays. So Carrington Valentine also right on the doorstep fighting for a starting position with Eric Stokes. But during OTAs and minicamp, Eric Stokes still got all the first-team reps opposite Jair. When Jair wasn't there, then it was Eric Stokes and Carrington Valentine. But Eric Stokes was the first name called after Jair Alexander throughout this offseason so far. Again, just showcasing that the Packers still fully believe in Eric Stokes. But this season's definitely going to determine if the Packers end up re-signing Eric Stokes after this season. If he can stay healthy and puts together a nice season, I'd be willing to bet the Packers definitely re-sign him. But if he goes through another season and has a bunch of injuries, he likely is off the Green Bay Packers after this season. And who knows at that point, even if another team signs him. So that's why he's my #1 make-or-break player for the Packers. Packers. The next player on this list is another draft pick from that 2021 draft class, the next pick right after Eric Stokes, and that is Josh Meyers from Ohio State. And of course, another player that is in the final year of his rookie deal. He was a second round, not a first round, so he didn't even have a fifth-year option, not that the Packers would have accepted it anyways. But Josh Meyers entering the last year of his deal, in my opinion, is the biggest make-or-break player on the offensive side of the football. And Josh Meyers has definitely been average thus far throughout his NFL career, and he's always being spotlighted to Creed Humphrey, as the Chiefs selected Creed Humphrey right after the Packers selected Josh Meyers. And he's had a completely different career path, becoming one of the best centers in the NFL today. Whereas Josh Meyers, on the flip side, has gotten a lot of hate from Packers fans. In my opinion, a little bit too much hate than he actually deserves. But I can't sit here and lie and say that last year wasn't his worst season as a pro. Josh Meyers allowed 5 sacks and 28 pressures, including 6 penalties in 2023. All career highs. Then when you take a look at the Green Bay Packers roster, in this draft, they selected Jacob Monk in the 5th round. And he's been taking reps at center number 2 throughout OTAs and minicamp, and seemingly is going to be the center of the future for the Green Bay Packers. At least that's what it looks like they see it as. And for Josh Meyers, it all but seems that the writing is actually on the wall. But he could also come out here in 2024 and have an insane season, or the best season he's had yet as a pro, and basically make the Packers want to re-sign him. Because at the end of the day, Jacob Monk can still definitely play guard, and there's a big hole at right guard right now, and he very well could get slotted into that spot some point this season. So it's not a guarantee that Jacob Monk will be our starting center next season, and there's no way the Packers bring back Josh Meyers after the season. It really does matter what happens this season with Josh Meyers and how he plays. And although I do believe it likely is his last season in Green Bay, it truly is a make or break season for Josh Meyers for the Green Bay Packers in 2024. The next player on this list is definitely a questionable one, but in my opinion, it still is a make or break season for him, and that is cornerback KeShawn Nixon. And you might be sitting here wondering, why would he be in a make or break season when the Packers just re-signed him to a 3-year deal through 2026? But I still believe it is a make or break season for KeShawn Nixon, at least on defense. We know he's an all-pro kick returner, and with the new kickoff rules, he'll probably be even better. And in that regard, he likely would remain on the team through his 3-year deal regardless. But in terms of a defensive starting position and what he's able to contribute on defense, I believe this is still a make or break season for him. His contract also does have a potential out after the season, where the Packers really wouldn't lose too much money with a post-June 1st designated cut. Last season, KeShawn Nixon rose to a starting role on this Packers defense as a nickel cornerback, and he definitely struggled his first year starting, to say the least, for the Packers. But this was also under the old defense under Joe Barry, where he didn't really allow his cornerbacks to play to their game. So maybe something changes with Jeff Hafley and KeShawn Nixon becomes a premier starting nickel cornerback in the NFL, but this is still a season that he has to prove that. Inconsistency was definitely KeShawn Nixon's issue in 2023. Nixon gave up 74 receptions for 717 yards and allowed a passer rating of 100.7. Then when you take a look at the current Green Bay Packers roster, we already talked about outside cornerback with Eric Stokes being a make or break season. But in terms of nickel cornerback, the Packers just drafted Javon Bullard in the 2nd round. And yes, he's listed as a safety right now, and his last season at Georgia was at safety. But the season prior to that, he was primarily a nickel cornerback. And in my opinion, that's where I see him fitting best in this Packers defense, or best in the NFL. Kind of that nickel role, that star role, a Brian Branch type of role. And I think he's going to be too good to keep off the field. So KeShawn Nixon's really going to have an amazing season in 2024 to remain at that nickel spot, in my opinion. And I honestly think this change could happen during the season. There could be some struggles with Nixon on defense early on, and the Packers quickly turn to their 2nd round pick, Javon Bullard, who's already been impressive throughout camp this offseason. And they've also already been moving him around, playing him at nickel some during this camp as well. And as I mentioned before when we were talking about Eric Stokes, Kalen King is another player that in the future could potentially potentially play nickel for the Green Bay Packers. You know, he could play outside, he could play inside, but I think at the NFL level, he best transitions into a nickel corner. So at the end of the day, if KeShawn Nixon struggles, I think he's on a very short leash in terms of this defense, and if he starts to struggle, he's going to be taken out of the defense sooner rather than later for someone like Javon Bullard. So that's why I think it's a make or break season for KeShawn Nixon, at least on the defensive side of the ball. Now, unlike the other players where it's a make or break season, and if they don't perform well, they're likely not in the green and gold next season, this is a situation where Nixon likely remains a Packer for the next at least 2 seasons, but might not play that much defense in the future based off of this season's performance. The last player on this list, we're going back to offense, and it's another obvious one, and it is A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon is definitely betting on himself this season. He signed a 4th-year qualifying offer with the Green Bay Packers this offseason, and that was the first time I've ever seen that type of contract. I didn't even know it existed because it's not often that players sign that type of deal because it really gives them no guarantees. And I'm pretty sure he went on record saying he was offered more money by other teams, but he simply wanted to remain in Green Bay. I mean, it makes sense. He built a family in Green Bay, and he's gone on record multiple times saying he simply wants to remain here and he'll do anything pretty much to help the team out. That contract was near a vet minimum with very little guarantees. It's not often you see a player sign that type of deal. And this is right after finishing out his rookie deal as a former 2nd-round draft pick. But at this point, A.J. Dillon has not lived up to the 2nd-round draft pick he was. He's definitely shown flashes, there's no doubt about that, but he's coming off his worst season as a pro in 2023, where he only averaged his career low 3.4 yards per carry, his lowest PFF grade in all 4 seasons, his lowest yards after contact per attempt in all 4 seasons, and also his lowest pass blocking grade in all 4 seasons. So yeah, it was a down year for A.J. Dillon, and I think if he didn't accept the qualifying offer type of deal, the low guarantees, the Packers probably wouldn't have paid him any much more. Because the Packers also showcased this when they signed Josh Jacobs after letting go of Aaron Jones, just showcasing that, you know, they don't believe A.J. Dillon can be a true number 1 running back on their team, and they needed another guy in the building like Josh Jacobs. They like to have a running back by committee, I understand that, but it's not like they went and signed another number 2 running back like a Zach Moss, where they said, okay, well, A.J. Dillon, you're the number 1, Zach Moss is the number 2, so on and so forth. No, they brought in Josh Jacobs. You know, he's had some rushing titles over the last couple of seasons, and is very clearly running back number 1. Not to mention also drafting Marshawn Lloyd in the 3rd round of this NFL draft, just giving kind of a little bit of deja vu when they drafted A.J. Dillon in the 2nd round, when the Packers had Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. It's kind of a revolving thing that the Packers keep doing at running back, and honestly, I'm all for it. It keeps guys fresh, and it keeps a lot of young talent in that room. But A.J. Dillon still needs to prove that he is capable of being running back number 2. And he does look good so far in camp. He looks slimmer, but also stronger. But Marshawn Lloyd has also looked great in camp as well, and it's definitely a huge camp battle, or upcoming training camp battle for running back spot number 2. But again, A.J. Dillon is still only 26 years old, but this running back room is simply stacked with talent, and the best will remain. So for all those reasons, it is certainly a make or break season for A.J. Dillon, not only as a Green Bay Packer, but as a pro. We know the revolving door that it is at running back in the NFL in today's day and age, and if you don't produce, you can be out of the league by 26, 27 years old as a running back. So this is more importantly a make or break for A.J. Dillon as a whole rather than the Green Bay Packers, because if he doesn't produce this season, he likely could be out of the NFL after this season. So those are the 4 make or break players I have for the Green Bay Packers entering the 2024 season. Let me know down in the comments below if you agree with these picks. Also, if there's anyone else on the roster that you think is entering a make or break year. I appreciate you guys coming by to the video. If you could, please leave a like down below. It supports the channel a ton. But I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching, and as always, go Pack Go.